Sir, I'm going to start with the next big thing that has everyone's attention captured. Chandrayaan 3 was a massive moment. We all, saw Chandrayaan 2, what happened. Of course, that was a disappointing moment, but the fact that we were able to bounce back and land on the moon now, there are a lot of expectations from Gaganyaan itself. Let me begin by asking you about, if you can tell us about the key milestones as far as Gaganyaan is concerned. We saw the event where the Prime Minister introduced the 4 Indian astronauts who've been selected, and what is the kind of timeline that we are looking at as far as Gaganyaan is concerned?
Gaganyaan, actually originally when the plan was made, the amount of work had really been underestimated. That's what I would say. The various parts of that mission involves first upgrading our launch vehicle to be human rated, so that the failure rate, anything happens in the launch vehicle, there are safety safeguards built into the launch vehicle so that the crew is saved. So that is called the human rating of the launch vehicle. This activity has been now practically completed. The second one is the orbiting vehicle in which the astronauts have to fly should also have a crew escape system, which will ensure that by the time the launch vehicle is nearing its destination and about to release the craft into orbit, at that time, if an emergency happens, still the crew has to be recovered safely. So that crew escape system testing is right now in progress, and last year we saw the first test vehicle mission, which is one of the test vehicle demonstration, where an abort happens during the flight, how the crew can be saved. So various tests to demonstrate the crew escape system is right now in progress. And we have also progressed very well for the crew module itself and as well as the service module. Right now at the URSC Satellite Center, right now the first crew module and the service module are getting integrated for the first uncrewed mission, possibly sometime later in this year. This assembly is going on. This mission, there won't be any crew, but every other system is going to be there. It is going to be a demonstration that what we have planned to do in the Gaganyaan mission is getting demonstrated. Now we'll be doing at least 2 or 3 of this kind of missions, uncrewed missions, which will happen this year as well as next year. And at the end of this, if we determine that all our new developments are complete and all the safety measures are in place, then we can think of going for the human flight towards the end of next year or early 2026. That is how it is planned right now.
I'm actually intrigued when you began your comments saying that perhaps we didn't estimate the kind of effort required, because, there's been the Space Reentry Vehicle project, which was there in the mid-2000s. We have the Indian Institute of Aerospace Medicine, which has been working in this regard for decades. Would you say that this mission, when you say that it wasn't planned out or perhaps was not thought of, now the stage that we are we now very clear that we are transitioning from this era of sending space vehicles and now, of course, into manned flight, from unmanned to manned? That path we have set on is very clear, and how quickly will that manned mission happen is also a question on many people's minds.
No, when I said that there was an underestimate, there was a plan how it was to be done when the announcement was made in 2018. And we had thought that some of the systems could be bought by us from the international market. And you call it as a fortune or a misfortune. I would prefer to call it as fortune. The people from whom we thought we could buy were not forthcoming and were not meeting our requirements. So we had to take a call of developing all of them on our own. That's why the delay has happened.
Right.
So right now, this Gaganyaan mission is going to be nearly 100% made in India kind of mission. And as I mentioned, the crewed mission likely to happen towards the end of next year.
Right.
That is the earliest it can happen.
Right. One of the most challenging parts that, one reads about this mission is that there has to be so much of redundancy. And you said that. There has to be an escape hatch. There have to be new systems that have to be built in, whether it's power propulsion, whether it's oxygen, whether it's, all sorts of systems that have to have redundancies and then more redundancies. So building that is virtually like building a new spacecraft, would you say?
Yes. Yes, because it is the approach itself is different, because generally spacecraft today are being built for performance. Safety is a secondary consideration, because there is if there is a failure, one failure, you take care of it, and if a second failure, some functionality will get lost. That is how all spacecraft are designed. But a human flight cannot go like that. You should be able to tolerate more than 2 or 3 failures and still bring back that crew safely back to Earth. So this change in the approach is what is the difference between uncrewed spacecraft and human space flight. That is what is calling for so much of additional margins building, new systems getting inducted into the craft, and a lot of testing.
Right. And also in terms of Gaganyaan itself, how do you see Gaganyaan really reshaping India's space program, and how India is going to contribute to the global space exploration from here on?
Actually, around the world itself, a lot of expectation is there when our crew module, as well as our service module and our human-rated launch vehicle are, when they are going to be available. This is what everybody around the world is looking for. The reason being simple. Around the world also, particularly the US, there is a lot of interest for a commercial crewed flight, and number of companies are working. One of the main requirement of any crewed flight is that you should have a backup which does not belong to you. For example, if India is making a human-rated launch vehicle, we should have a backup from somebody other than ISRO. So like that, those commercial operators are looking for some backup for their own human-rated launch vehicles and crew modules. So they are looking at our Gaganyaan kind of crafts as potential backup for their systems. So when they build their human flights and their space station, they are looking for somebody like us to be available as their backup. That's why even in the US there is a lot of interest for us to succeed in this, and also for us being available as a backup for them.
Right, and India will be one of the few countries that's actually sent a human being into space, yes, in that very small club of the great spacefaring nations of the world, and that itself would be a huge thing for India in that sense.
Yes.
To be recognized globally, would you say?
Yes, the human space flight is a completely different class from launching satellites or launch vehicles. It is a completely different type of work, which requires much more safety, because the human space flight itself is being called a safety critical system. The most critical part of that is not performance; it is the safety. That is why, if we are able to succeed that, then in that domain, then our ability to do many other space missions are going to be very, very high.
Right. And with this, we had seen, for instance, our astronauts go to the Russian training centers, have been trained there, they've come back now. In terms of our own infrastructure, do you see this further being developed in terms of being able to train astronauts in the future here in India? I know there are certain facilities that are already doing that, but do you see an augmentation in that regard?
Yes, already in part of our campus at the URSC Satellite Center, there is an astronaut training facility. Currently, that's where our astronauts are training. And a new, bigger facility is being built in the outskirts of Bangalore, near the Bangalore airport. That is also upcoming. And we are also making plans for doing a very exhaustive facility for future crewed flight, because the Government of India has already announced that by 2040, India should have a man or a woman land on moon and come back safely to Earth. And by 2035, India will have its own space station with human presence. So to meet these two requirements, a large number of flights with crew has to happen to the low Earth orbit, and also to the space station what we are planning to build, and of course to the moon and back. So a large number of human space flights are going to happen. For this, a large number of crew also need to be selected and trained. So these activities have already been taken up. A new building is coming up in the campus near airport in Bangalore. Yeah, all activities are lined up and are in progress.
This is very, very interesting. A man on the moon, as you mentioned, 2040, that's going to be a very challenging one. Do you think our current technology that we have, how much of a leapfrog will it have to take to actually be able to, get a man or a woman on the moon?
See, we have been doing all these technology developments independently and incrementally. Like Chandrayaan is one of them. We are also doing another mission which is likely to happen this year or early next year, which is called the space docking experiment, where 2 spacecrafts are going to be put in orbit, separated by a few thousand kilometers, and again make them to come together and dock. This is one technology that is required for the human being to go to moon and come back. We have developed a retro rocket which can be fired from the moon surface to come back from moon back to Earth. Like this, various aspects of, like we have to have a docking adapter. That is, through a adapter, a person should be able to go from one craft to another craft, like how it happens today in the International Space Station. This work is also going on. So we are lining up all these developments such that by 2028, there is a plan that the first module of the Indian Space Station, Bharatiya Antariksh Station, is going to be up. Many of these technologies are going to get inducted in that. From 2028 to 2040, through various other missions, all these technologies are going to be developed and demonstrated.
Right. I know this is strictly security is not your area, so you're a scientist, but I have to ask you this question as a common man. With so much of human space flight happening, the question that will be on many people's minds is, there a security implication to all of this? The United States already has a space command, for instance. Yes. We've seen how China famously shot down its satellite in the early 2000s. What are we looking at in terms of the security implications of a very sensitive area such as space?
Though ISRO is a strictly civilian organization doing work in space in the civilian domain, space has no such limitation. Space is around the world being considered as the fourth segment of the forces. So it is inevitable that the capabilities that are provided by the space technology will be utilized for the national defense, and that is what is happening around the world, and it will happen in India also.
Right, and very ambitious projects that you're talking about. What role does political will play in terms of actually funding and aiding such massive programs for ISRO?
Yeah, without the support of the government of the day, it is impossible for any long-term programs like space. The programs like space station or landing on moon or going to Mars are not going to give returns in kind immediately. The returns are going to be of a different kind. It will be a long-term benefit of multifold. So we need patience, and that patience, unless the government has the willingness to wait for the outcome, these kind of programs will not be possible to be achieved. So definitely it is without the government support and the sustained support from the government, it is not possible to do this, which we have been getting from the government. That's why all these new programs have been announced.
Right. Let me come to the area that you specialize in, sir, in satellites. Take us through the number of satellite projects that you have been part of over the years, and what is the roadmap ahead? Because there are multiple use from remote sensing to, in fact, telecom, navigation. There are so many areas where satellites have a very practical role to play in India's development.
See, from the day I joined, that is October 7th, 1986, about 120 satellites I would have worked.
120 satellites?
120 satellites.
Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. 120 satellites that he's been associated with.
And till I became the deputy director of the center, in fact, I used to proudly tell that there is something which I have touched on that has gone to the space. So I have worked in many of the satellites since the time I joined ISRO in 1986. We have been doing in the past, based on the directions given by our founding father, Professor Vikram Sarabhai. The space technology and its applications for the use of the common man were the driving force for all our missions. Either satellites or launch vehicle, everything were aimed at ensuring that these are application oriented and the outcome is usable by the general public. But in this start of this century, that is in the first decade, a change happened because India also economically started developing, and we could think little beyond serving only the people of the nation and only giving services. We should also look at other things. That is how missions like Chandrayaan 1, the NAVIC, our Indian regional navigation system, and the Cartosat satellite series, all these kind of programs were initiated. Today we are reaping the benefits of all those initiatives taken in the beginning of this century. And the one success actually feeds the continued success. So when India is growing economically and we are also able to develop our technological prowess, we also gain more and more confidence that we can take on more and more challenging tasks. That is what we are seeing today, from landing on the moon, looking at now a lander to go to Mars, or Ganganyaan, or putting a crew on the moon and bringing back our own space station. All of them are an outcome of this. It is the confidence that the organization gets from its own success and also from the economic strength of the country. In addition to all these programs, what I have been talking about, Chandrayaan and Gaganyaan kind of missions, it is like bread and butter. We need to have the communication and the Earth observation and the navigation. These kind of missions are required as bread and butter for this nation, for its governance as well as for the economical well-being. All these are being done, and Government of India has directed us in 2020 that we should now ensure that many of these repeat things which have commercial value can be done in industry. So we are moving towards that. We are trying to make more and more industry to get partner us. Industries have always been partner to ISRO. In fact, if you look at any satellite or launch vehicle, nearly 90% of the work for any satellite or launch vehicle is being done in industry. But they are doing bits and pieces, not the whole. Now the movement is towards making them to do the whole. That is what is going to happen. We will see the outcome of all these efforts which has happened over the last 3-4 years and will continue for next few years. Maybe about a decade later we will see the outcome of this, right, where there will be big Indian companies who will own and realize satellites and launch vehicles and operate their own satellites. That is what we are all looking for, maybe one decade down the line.
Right, so you're saying that in 2023, the Indian space policy that was changed, that's going to have a huge impact in terms of private sector participation. We were already looking at, for instance, a private sector launch that was also scheduled a few weeks back. So you're saying that will give a huge thrust and will increase the number of satellites that India launches in the coming decade? Yes.
See, the 2020 space sector reforms is nothing but a recognition that the space sector is an area where lot of money and lot of people have to be involved, and it is impossible that everything can be done only by the Government of India. So we have to make that sector attractive for industry and business. That is what is being done. So we do expect, to give you a perspective, we are having today about 25 communication satellites and 25 Earth observation satellites. But for a country of our size, economic value and the number of people, we need at least about 100 times this number of satellites if you want to meet the requirements of this country for its governance and its communication and geospatial applications.
How do we compare to, say, China in this regard?
China is at least 10 to 15 times bigger than our assets, at least 10 to 15 times more they have. The US has very large number, and we have no public information about Russia. But these are the three main countries we have to look at. So China definitely we can look at as a model, at least 10 to 15 times more than what we have is the size of their assets.
Right. Also, the Prime Minister has recently hailed the pivotal role played by India's Nari Shakti in the space sector. How crucial has been the role of women in implementing India's space programs?
Not only in space sector, any sector becomes more disciplined when there is involvement of women. That I firmly believe in that. Wherever women get involved, the sector becomes more disciplined because generally the boys will also start behaving when there are girls around. So definitely I feel that the presence of ladies is very important in every sector, and ISRO being equal opportunity organization, we are not actively discouraging anybody or actively encouraging anybody. We make sure that our work environment does not discourage women to come and work. That is why about 20% of our scientific and technical staff are women. And we are looking at increasing this number. That this increase cannot happen by only through ISRO's efforts. It can only happen through a general improvement in the number of women who get enrolled in engineering and science streams. If you look at the colleges where girls are, now it is changing, but the change required is that more women should get involved in other than computer science also, other streams of engineering and science. If they get involved, there is obviously going to be more pool of women engineers and scientists. Obviously, we are also going to recruit them, because at the time of recruitment, we don't distinguish between men and women. Only just it is the number of people who come in, a percentage of them are getting selected. So in principle, what I would say, if as a nation, if we are encouraging our women to get involved in science and engineering education more actively, not only ISRO, in every sector, the participation of women is going to increase.
Right. So my last question to you is that, one of the most interesting aspects of Gaganyaan is the fact that you have so much of cooperation between different wings of the government. You have the armed forces, you have DRDO, you have IMD, and, all of them coming together with ISRO to bring together a project such as Gaganyaan. At the end of the day, do you think it's a huge shot in the arm for our own Atmanirbharta in terms of India's prospects of being a space power in global in the next decades to come?
The Gaganyaan, as has been rightly pointed out by the Honorable Prime Minister, is not just the mission of ISRO, it is the mission of the nation, where there is contribution from not only the government departments, but also from the forces, from the industry. Many people are involved to make this happen. When, like one landing on the moon has really suddenly woken up many people around the world that India is a space power, India can do this and that. It is not that overnight India has become a space power on that day of August 23rd. India has been doing this for a year, but we need one symbolic event like Chandrayaan-3 to land on the moon for everybody to open their eyes and recognize that is what happened around the world. Same thing is going to happen for Gaganyaan also. When the first Indian flies in the space in our own craft, launched by our own launch vehicle and safely brought back to Indian ocean area, that is going to be a huge, huge plus point for the image of this country. The remaining things, I all feel they are all secondary. The technological achievement that will come through it, the engineering capabilities that we will build, these are all secondary. The most important one is that we will be demonstrating to the world that it is possible for us with our own efforts to do this kind of activity. Then it is only going to make it easy for our own people, the youngsters, the youth to believe that it is possible for them also to do such things. We are looking at that as the main benefit of doing Gaganyaan.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sankaran, for joining us and sharing with us ISRO's perspective and plans ahead. Certainly an organization that has made 1.4 billion Indians extremely proud over the last several years. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.